What's up, boys and girls? Alessandro here, and welcome to this new lesson video. First off, just wanted to say a quick thank you for the nice words under the first lesson video on the channel. I received some nice feedback. I'm happy that you enjoyed that one, and there's plenty more to come, so stay tuned if you like this, because there will be a lot of stuff incoming. Now let's get into today's topic, which is going to be vibrato. We're going to take a look at how to develop a very nice vibrato. We're going to take a look at different kinds of vibrato that you can use in different situations, different, musical contexts, I would say. I'm gonna give you some tips and tricks that I feel like a lot of people just ignore or don't really pay as much attention to as they should. Now, the reason why this is very, very dear and important to me is because I feel like nowadays it's very, very common to see a lot of players, and you can see that all around, they tend to develop a great amount of technical skills. There are so many people that are just amazingly talented, at, again, technical stuff. They do things that, are just crazy. But when it comes to the expression side of things, so expressive techniques, just as vibrato, also bends, I feel like a lot of players nowadays just lack on that side so much that you see this great amount of technical skills, and then when it's time to bend or vibrate a note, you can clearly see that, there's a kind of mismatch in the amount of time that they put into developing the technical side of things and the expressive side of things. And you can clearly see that their vibrato is not controlled, that maybe their bends are not totally up to pitch. And that hurts quite a lot. So I feel like today, with all the shred stuff, there's the tendency to kind of forget about all of these things and just lean towards the technical, flashy, kind of show-off side of things, completely forgetting, or not forgetting, but taking for granted stuff that is just as important as the technical side of things. So as much as it can be important to have a well-developed set of techniques to use at your advantage, so that way you kind of you don't really have that many limits and you can push yourself, I feel like the best thing for your playing is to equally develop technical stuff and expressive techniques as well. And I feel like a lot of people tend to ignore the importance of practicing something like vibrato just as you would practice a technique like alternate picking, sweep picking, or whatever. So my advice in this case is consider vibrato also bends as a technique on their own. So I suggest that you take it, consider it, and you work on it just as if it was like any other technique. So you spend time just on it, focused on it, and I can guarantee you that you're gonna get some great results in matching your expressive techniques with your just, overall technical skills. So do me a favor and don't take vibrato for granted, because it's very, very important. It's crucial for your playing. It can change the way you play completely. So keep that in mind. Let's take a look at the correct vibrato technique, the correct motion. This is something that a lot of people tend to do wrong, or they just have bad habits. So let's take a closer look, and it's very, very important that you develop this correctly right from the beginning. So let's get right into it. Let's start off by saying that the correct motion of your vibrato should come only from your wrist, okay? So not from your fingers. A lot of people tend to do this wrong and just use their fingers while keeping their hand completely still, okay? So this is what you'd get, like basically this motion right here with my fingers, okay? So just pushing your fingers up instead of rotating the wrist, okay? So you want to avoid keeping your wrist and just using your fingers just like this, just like you would bend and just like you do with alternate picking, okay? So you're moving your wrist. This is the same principle, but translated to the left hand. If you're lefty, the opposite. So let's see an example on the guitar. This is what you want to avoid at any cost. So just using the fingers. So if you try and do this, you will notice that your hand will get all tensed up, just the opposite of what you want to get, you know, into a relaxed playing style. You will not feel in control over what you're doing, and it's not going to be as smooth as if you were doing it in the correct way. So let's take a look at the correct vibrato motion, so by using and rotating the wrist. So again, the work is done just by my wrist. I am picking the note and then I'm moving my wrist up and down, okay? Just as if you were alternating, but with your left hand. So that's the correct movement that you want to achieve. One thing that I just did while playing, which is very, very important, is to develop vibrato with each finger on every finger combination. So not only, you know, using your 3 fingers, which is very, very common, you know, while playing, but it's very, very important that you try your best to practice also with just 1, 2, 3, and then 4, because there's going to be many occasions, many situations where you will find yourself, you know, just landing on a note on a particular finger, and you need to be able to pull off a nice, smooth and controlled vibrato with each finger. Because again, every finger has a different purpose, every finger is going to have some sort of a different sensation to it while doing vibrato with it. So it's very, very important that you try your best to practice every possible scenario. So let's take a look into it. Now you'll notice there are 2 more important things that I'm doing while I'm playing, which is 1, I am trying to maintain a certain timing with my vibrato, and 2, I'm changing up the strings while I'm playing. And these 2 elements are so important. It's crucial that you incorporate them in your practice routine if you want to improve your vibrato, because the first one, timing, being just the most important thing whenever and whatever you practice. I'm gonna do a separate dedicated video on just how to practice, a lot of tips and tricks on how to, you know, make the most out of your practice sessions, let's say. But for now, what I'm gonna tell you is that even if we're speaking about vibrato, I feel like it's very, very important that you use your metronome as well. For example, one thing that you could do is that you could take a metronome, and every beat, you can make that correspond to a, let's say, a fluctuation of your vibrato. That way you're making sure that you're developing a nice, clean, controlled and precise technique. That's always your end goal. So make sure whatever you're doing that you are taking care of everything and paying a lot of attention on being precise and accurate. As far as the second point, so changing up the strings, that's something that's very important. It doesn't really matter what are we talking about. You can pick any exercise. I feel like it's incredibly beneficial for you to just try and, you know, take a section and just move it around, because every part of the neck, every part of the fretboard is going to feel different, especially with vibrato. You know, like the lower side of the fretboard is going to feel much harder. You know, you're going to need to put a lot of effort to make your vibrato work, instead of, you know, being up here, which is going to be much, much smoother, you know, but you have your hand, you know, all in this tiny space, which is going to be just a different sensation. Every exercise in each part of the fretboard is going to feel different, so make sure that you are prepared for anything. Now, another nice thing that you can practice on is vibrato with a bend. So let's take a note, let's bend it, and then let's vibrate on top of that. So let's try it out. Obviously, it's going to get much harder. With bends, the principle is just the same, you know, the motion is always the same. What's going to be different is that you'll need to put in a lot more effort and strength into your fingers, you know, to hold the correct pitch, and then just move from there. So again, this is just an idea of something else that you can practice your vibrato with. I feel like you should take it step by step. So my advice is start with the regular normal stuff and then move your way up, you know, to more challenging stuff, blending bands and vibrato. That is a good practice. And now let's take a look at a second kind of vibrato, which is what I would call extreme vibrato or wild vibrato. It also partially comes from Zakk Wylde, a very famous guitar player. If you don't know about him, go check him out. He was the guitar player for Ozzy Osbourne back then. And he was kind of famous for this very, very aggressive form of vibrato that he was using a lot of times. And that was a sort of trait of his playing. And so what this means is basically forgetting all about smoothness and just being delicate. You know, you want to do the opposite. So this will be something that is highly used in rock or metal, you know, all those genres that are definitely more aggressive and punchy, and you know, they can carry something like this in solo playing. I don't see this, you know, on a jazz record or something like that, but you never know. So I'm open to everything, but yeah, mostly it's a very aggressive kind of vibrato, so you're gonna find it in those like contexts, I guess. So the principle of it, the motion stays the same really. What changes is the range of the vibrato itself. So you are basically expanding, okay, the motion that you're doing with your fingers, but everything's the same. You just need to really convey a lot of that aggression that I was telling you about into this thing, but motion is always the same. So let's take a look at some examples. So as you can see, I'm not worrying too much about the actual pitch of the note or it feeling in control. It's actually probably the opposite. So it's more like making it feel like I'm losing control in a way. But again, the motion is the same. It's just faster, more aggressive, and the intention that you play it with is really what changes this kind of approach to this specific vibrato. Now let's take a look at another form of vibrato, which is the classical guitar vibrato. This is something that you don't see too much on electric guitar, but there are some people that apply this to electric guitar. It's actually very, very nice. It is something that's going to be very, very useful in some scenarios. It's going to be especially useful when playing chords, because when you are playing chords, you can't really pull off the normal vibrato. It's going to sound quite often weird. It's going to feel more like a tremolo probably more than a vibrato. So this is something that's very, very useful. And what it is about is, instead of having a vertical movement, so going up and down just like your regular vibrato, we are gonna take our vibrato horizontally, okay? So this way, okay, just following the string, okay? And what you want to achieve is a very, very subtle movement with your hand and wrist, okay? So very, very subtle. You don't want to move it around too much. You want to anchor your hand, your fingers to that note and just move left and right slightly, okay? So being very, very gentle. So let me give you an example. As you can hear, it sounds much more full and round compared to even just a regular vibrato, you know. It comes from classical guitar technique, so it's gonna be, you know, more delicate by nature. So let me give you an example of using this while playing chords. So just as I told you, if I take a very basic C major and try to apply just regular vibrato, it's gonna sound very weird, just like a tremolo. So let's hear it first. So as you can see, not only it does sound weird, but it also feels and looks weird because I'm doing it in such an uncomfortable way and position, you know, while playing chords, that is just completely wrong. And the correct thing to do in a case like this is to apply the classical guitar vibrato, which comes in very handy. So let's take a look at it. So again, this is a very subtle and delicate form of vibrato, but it's really cool. You can try it for yourself and you will hear the difference, you know, in trying to incorporate this thing sometimes, you know, not all the time, because the regular vibrato is of course still fine for most of the stuff, but this is a very nice alternative for some specific situations. Now, I'll leave you with some thoughts on vibrato. The first one being, don't overuse it. What I mean by that, I feel like, again, vibrato is so important for me, is one of the crucial aspects of my playing, and just for me, you know, guitar in general is an incredibly nice thing, and I feel like it adds so much to the playing. But just like everything, I feel like not overdoing it is the key. So if you apply vibrato on every note, it kind of defeats the purpose of it. Okay, just like everything, if you do too much of it, then it's like you are not doing it at all. I really feel like, again, everything in your playing should be equal, so be sure to be aware of how you are incorporating vibrato in your playing. Let me just give you an example of how I would play and approach some random lines just jamming with vibrato. So let's take a look at it. So as you can see, I am trying to always maintain a good mix between notes with and notes without. So there is something that you can find always in my playing, whatever I do. I feel like keeping a balance in everything you do, especially again, playing with technique and whatever, is the key a lot of times. So that's my advice here. Now, my last thought for today's video is gonna be to experiment with vibrato. And I mean, listen, watch a ton of different players, different genres, all kinds of stuff. And the good thing about this is that everyone has their kind of own unique approach to expressive techniques. And that's really the good side of it. I feel like you can get inspired to kind of find your own way, or, you know, just be free to experiment different things and find out what works best for you. Because again, at the end of the day, everything is personal. Feel free to experiment and don't limit yourself. Always explore new stuff and find out new applications of vibrato. In this case, I feel like that can only be a benefit and a good thing for you and your playing. So that's it for today's video. I want to thank you so much again for watching this, for watching the previous one, and for all the support that you're giving me on the channel. So I'm truly grateful for that. There's a lot more of this coming, so stay tuned. The only thing that I ask you back for these videos is to subscribe if you are new, and to share this video and share my stuff. That's the best way that you can support me right now. So again, thank you so much for watching and sticking by, and I'll see you in the next one.